Barbleg Games. I'm Pete. Let me know if the music is too quiet or too loud in the background. Just thought it'd be nice to have it trickling along. I'm just being a little bit quiet right now because the boys have just gone to bed, so just hoping that they stay asleep and we can carry on doing this. Anyway, tonight we were going to have episode 10 of our Pathfinder show, Roads and Ruins, but unfortunately we had a couple of people who couldn't make it tonight, so instead I've kicked everybody else out and I've said I'm doing another Wandering Wild Mountain Heroic Deeds stream, reinventing Dungeons & Dragons, as egotistical as that may sound on the stream title. Hey, it's fun. Good little bit of chat from the guys. Hello, Wojciech, Kaunan, Kargan. Hey, how's everyone doing in the chat? Nice to see you here. Say hi if you're in the chat, and don't forget that you can pose me questions, throw ideas at me. I may blatantly steal them, or I may just completely ignore you. We shall see. Oh, it's still in background and loud. Okay, that's because I'm talking quietly. Turn my volume up a little bit and turn that down a little bit. How's that? Is that good? Hello, so Derek. Hello, and Aaron Iseka, welcome. Cool. Okay, so yes, no Pathfinder tonight, and instead a Heroic Deeds. Heroic Deeds. Cool. Okay. Stream where I talk a bit about my D&D rebuild. Now, most of you are in the chat have already heard a lot of this stuff, and I'm not going to go over too much of it because tonight I actually wanted to get into one of the big changes that I've made since the last stream. I think Heroic Dudes. No, Heroic Deeds. Since the last stream, I've had a few thoughts about the game and how some of it that I was building was just clinging on to old school stuff for no reason, and I thought, no, actually, I've got a really cool idea for the main crux of it, where you perform, instead of them being called advances, they're now called deeds. So you'll complete 3 deeds and you level up, and that deed will give you special abilities, which is kind of like the class leveling abilities. So you get the abilities for level 2. Once you've got them all, you become level 2. Dudes and dudettes. Okay. So the deeds, I've renamed it Heroic Deeds so that it does what it says on the tin. The title of the game is kind of like what you're doing. So you are doing heroic deeds, and that's kind of the focus of your character, and it kind of encapsulates the main change that I've done to it, you know, this different leveling process. But while I was doing that, and I was playing around with a few other things and talking to people on the Discord, come and join our Discord, by the way, if you're watching this back later, or if you're watching it right now and you're not on our Discord, jump on there and do that. If you're watching this back later, there's a link below in the video description on YouTube or in the VOD. Having a chat on our Discord about changing more rules, changing more things, and at first I thought I don't want to change too much stuff because that might alienate people who like old school D&D. But I thought if I can make it feel like old school D&D and make it easy for new people to play, then that might be a good thing. And there is some stuff about D&D that is kind of like a holdover from the old days, like attributes. So I made a whole raft of changes. So dastardly Discord. What? Is it not like that link? No, that's alright. So instead of having a set of attributes that go from 3 to 18 when you roll 3d6, and which you then never look at again, but you only ever look at the modifier of. Going to get rid of the attribute number, and it's just going to be a modifier. So you will pick I can show you. Oh, okay, Calnan. Well, I'll check that out after the stream. Here we go. I'm going to change it so that, where are we? Starting attributes. Attributes. 6 core capabilities of your character, which form the base modifier for every roll you will make. Every roll adds one of these attributes to it, depending on what you're doing. In order to show your character's natural aptitude or ineptitude, attributes are therefore simply represented by a modifier number. For starting characters, this will range between -4 and +4, with 0, no positive or negative modifier to a roll, being the average. Particularly powerful creatures might have an attribute as high as +10. Now I just wrote that. I don't know how high they'll go, but why not +10? But you won't need to worry about that in your first few levels. The way I'm writing this as well is that there's going to be a distinct kind of starter tier. The first couple of levels, and getting to level 3 will be often referred to as kind of the starter tier, or beginning, the beginner bit, or the basic bit, because some of those little holdovers from the old school stuff in flavour and names can be quite useful. It's going to be that it advises you to start your first game of heroic deeds you have as a first level character, and then once you've played it a few times, you start as third level characters. And to support this as well, to make things easier for starting players, making it so that there are only 4 classes to pick from at first level, so cleric, fighter, magic user, thief. And then once you get to third level, there are special deeds that you can complete that will branch you off into you could stay as a fighter, for example, or you could become a battle rager, berserker, or a commander, or a paladin, or a ranger. And there'll be a deed that allows you to go into that. And after a while, you'll sort of go, oh, I don't need to do those first couple of levels. I'll just start as level 3 because I want to play a ranger. Okay, we're going to have a level 3 game. And it's explicitly simplifying not the rules, but the way people are brought into the game, and it's discussed for starting players to make it easier for people to start playing it. So okay, I've got to pick one of these 4 things that does some stuff, and someone doesn't have to explain to me why I have a score, which I never use, and a modifier based on that score. Things like that. So it's still strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, all the lovely classic attributes, but there'll be a modifier only. And there are a set of modifier arrays, attribute arrays, that you can select from. So you pick one of those and you then assign them where you want to. All of them have a negative in. Some of them are very balanced, so there's one in the middle here with +1, +1, +1, +1, +2, and a -1. And then some are quite focused. -1, 0, 0, 0, +3, +3. And I can imagine, you might get some fighter people who pick this, or their physical attributes are good, and more balanced characters might want to cover their bases so that they can do all kinds of things and get bonuses to lots of different things. So we're doing that. So instead of saying, oh, add your strength modifier, you just say, add your strength, for example. Everything is going to be a DC. And here's one of the things that I wanted to explore tonight. We've got, I need 6 lines so Sam can roll it. That is a really good callback. I love it. It's good old Sam. She loves to randomly generate her characters in all the shows she's been in. I need to get back on the channel actually. It's been a while since I've played a game with her. My target class, so I've renamed armor class and split 2 elements of it out. So target class is going to be replace armor class, and this is how hard of a target you are to hit, which is why it's called target class. And I wanted to call it something separate from difficulty class, just to have, this is your combat difficulty class. And I didn't want it to be armor class because armor class doesn't quite describe what it is now. So target class is how hard you are to hit, and this is equal to, and this is subject to change. So this is me, putting some stuff down. I'm funny, I like to get like blocks of stuff down, like put headers down and then start writing a bit under each thing, and then I'll come back and edit it or change it or go, no, that's rubbish. And it's supposed to be, I know it's damage resistance or damage reduction. I think I might call it damage reduction because that's a bit more literal. It's like, oh, what does this do? Oh, that reduces damage. Okay, cool. I get that. And when you say damage resistance, it's like you could possibly misinterpret that. And I'm trying to make it so that it's clear what things are. And I think at some points I'm going to have, sections where it talks about how you should think about the game mechanically, but how you should think about the game as part of the fantasy. But that's for later. It's already sort of taking over my brain, this, so that's quite cool. I'm trying to focus on it so I don't like suddenly think of something else that I want to start designing and run off. Yes, Kargan. Armor has a damage reduction and a target class reduction. So basically what happens is with target class, it's equal to 10 plus your dexterity, which is just a modifier now, so that's cool. The armor penalty, so your armor will have a penalty that you apply to your target class. Big armor will have a worse penalty. And then any related armor proficiency. So this is where armor proficiency comes in, which I think is kind of like in D&D 5th edition. It's just like, I'm proficient, I can use armor. I want it to be slightly more relevant and different. And because I'm doing kind of tiered proficiency like Pathfinder 2, I thought it feels like a gap. Like, why am I so worried about my armor proficiency? What could it do for me? And this is where it kind of comes in. So your armor proficiency actually negates your armor penalty, potentially, depending on how good you are and how heavy it is. So big suits of armor, you put them on, you don't have any armor proficiency, you'll be like -5 or something. So you'll be like, oh god, my armor class is 5, I'm just going to get hit all the time. Although you'll have good damage reduction, but that's not necessarily what you want. You don't want to be being hit all the time. As you learn how to move in your suit of armor and you personalize it, and that strap has to be tied to there, and I can have a bit of a give there because that's my shield arm and that kind of thing. You figure out the best way to use and wear and service your armor. So you start to be able to work off some of the penalty to your target class. So it makes armor efficiency a bit more interesting, and not just I can use medium armor now. You can still wear medium armor, you can still use it. You're just going to have you're going to be serious penalties. And if you get proficiency in unarmored, for example like a monk or fighter, then that's basically you know how to duck and weave and bob and all that kind of stuff. You've had training beyond your natural dexterity. That's what that is. So you know how to trick people. You may not be the fastest person, but if I lean on my foot this way, they'll think I'm going in that direction, but actually I'm stepping that way. That kind of thing. Damage reduction is then literally take this off the damage that's done to me, and this needs some figuring out and some finessing and some bit of spreadsheets. Bosh. Oh, hang on, we'll come back to that in a minute. So damage reduction is literally going to be you take it off. There's some stuff I need to think about with damage types, but I'm gonna leave that for now. I want to figure out kind of the base premise and the base calculations and like how good is 1 damage reduction if I don't substantially change things like the damage dice of weapons and attribute modifiers and those kinds of things. How good is 3, damage reduction? I've said here that even if the damage reduction brings it to 0, you just take 1 point of damage, because I think it's crap if you have successfully hit someone but you don't do any damage. And I like that in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. That's one in 4th edition, one of the few editions that I thought was really clever. There's lots of other editions, not all of them are clever. And I thought it'd just be a nice thing that you always take a point of damage, because even if they haven't like busted through your armor and cut your skin, they've bashed you, you're having to realign, you're having to move. And I have said that hit points are kind of a mixture of your ability to deal with difficult situations, not just literally how much blood you have in your body, because why would your hit points go up every level if you're getting bigger body with more blood in it? Death of 100 dings. Yes, absolutely. So it means that you can't just wade into battle thinking that you'll be fine. If you're a big armored dude and everyone gangs around you and slowly beats you to death, then they're going to slowly beat you to death. So it kind of simulates that as well. Could weapons do damage? Here's a good question from Calnan. Could weapons do damage in proportion to the amount they exceed the target class, especially if using VTT? So this is interesting. This brings up a topic that I was talking about on Twitter. You can follow me, just me, Arcalofax. I will. Is me. That's. And I was talking today about in the 70s and the 80s, all the games were super crunch, and you had heroes and what was it? You had all the D&D stuff. You had Rollmaster, Han Master, and all those kinds of things. There's just lots of crunchy games. I remember playing MERP, and even that was a trimmed down version of Rollmaster, but that still had lots of tables, lots of big numbers. And recently, over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years, there's been a move to simpler rule systems, because people are sitting around a table, they're not wargamers, and the game has moved away from that wargaming population as the predominant players. They're still there, and there are people who still enjoy crunch. I like a bit of crunch from time to time. I think it's great fun sometimes to get into those numbers. As you'll see, I quite like numbers. But more and more people getting into role playing, and more people wanting stories and fast flowing games and rules like kind of stuff. And you get to systems like Free League, where it's kind of like, I've got some 6-sided dice, I've got a number and a number, add them together, roll that many dice, how many 6s have I got? Cool. And it's not overly complicated. There's not huge number of tables, and it's great. It's really great for round the table experience. Simpler rules like games are quicker. You can be in your character doing the story more, which is cool, and a lot of people love that. But now we've got VTTs everywhere, and everyone's doing it so much, and because of all of the COVID stuff, everyone's playing online a lot more. And I thought, well, hang on, surely that means that you can reintroduce crunch, but it can be hidden crunch. So we don't sit around a table flicking through books or folders or lever arch files and all that crap. For hours, because it completely just destroys the mood and breaks momentum. You can be in a really cool moment, and then someone says, I want to use my Lucerne hammer to puncture the armor instead of hammering them, but they're on horseback and I'm standing on a high ground, and you start to have to look through all this stuff and are you wearing armor? Are they how heavily encumbered are you? All that kind of stuff. You're kind of like, well, this is just too much. So, but if you're playing in a VTT, that can all just be hidden, and your players don't need to learn the rules, they need to learn the buttons, which is dangerous, very dangerous. You know, and we've been playing games. We play a lot of games on the channel, and often us GMs will throw games out there and say, "Hey, who wants to play this?" And people will be like, "Yeah, cool. I've never played it before. That's fine. Get on the Foundry. Here we go. I'm not sure what I'm doing." Well, what you need to do is target someone and click your weapon. Okay, there you go. That's good. You know, and everything's working in the background. And my favourite experience with Warhammer 4th Edition, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, was using Foundry, because there's so much page flipping with 4th Ed, with all the creatures having all these traits, but they're not in with the creature. They're in a section there, and then the combat rules and flicking criticals and all that kind of stuff. In the Foundry, it's so cool that it's all just linked, and you just go, it says, dunk, here it is, and it says critical, and you click critical, and then dunk, here's the thing, and it says have a bleeding condition, and you just drag the bleeding condition onto the target, and they've got the bleeding condition. And it's like, that's just amazing. And that person didn't need to worry about tables or charts or modifiers or whatever, you know. So maybe if we start designing games for VTTs, we could be, you know, putting some crunch back in there, hidden tables in the background, you know, and whenever they do something, it just says, "You've got a gruesome critical," and they're like, "Cool, that's great." And you click on it, and it calculates, you know, 3 simultaneous equations based on your clothing, your weapons, your armor, the phase of the moon, you know, your lucky number, and figures out how much damage you do. Let's have a look. Two-handed do 1 point per success. Daggers do 1/3 or 1/4. I missed the comments there. But yeah, so we're chatting about that, and earlier on, Canon was saying, could weapons do damage in proportion to the amount they exceed the target class? And I like that in principle, but I think that would be adding in some complication that is not what I'm going for in this at the moment. If I were designing a game specifically for VTT, I'd put all kinds of stuff in there. You could have, you know, you could have it kind of grading, you know, but that's kind of like you then wouldn't need to roll a weapon die, would you? And all that kind of stuff. And things like Free League and games like that, and actually some of the games I've designed in the past where you roll a number of successes and you can add them onto your damage, so the better your roll, the more success, you know, so that's kind of cool. Kargan, piercing weapons might do ongoing damage or ignore some damage reduction. Yeah, one thing I'm thinking about is having or some suits of armor have a weakness, and their damage reduction is worse or half or something like that versus those types of things. So you might, you know, you can probably imagine some of the combinations of piercing or bludgeoning or slashing versus types of armor. That's a possibility, and as I said, I'm trying to have a look at the numbers first and figure a bit of that out, and then I can start to add in layers. So the base numbers first, and then kind of add in those layers. Is there anything else in the main documents? Damage reduction, blah blah blah. No, and then I just started going into like writing stuff out and sort of saying what's what, and putting things in a bit of a format. But I think my next thing is that I'm gonna probably try and think about, and it sounds weird, but think about a character sheet and think about a layout. I've got someone doing some artwork, some official artwork for it at the moment. Good old Mustafa Bakir, and we'll see what that looks like soon. Hopefully I'll be able to share that on the Discord, so that's cool. But yeah, I wanted to have a think about target class and later on damage reduction, but I want to think about the kind of modifiers that I've put into it and what that would mean in terms of target class, and then have a think about what would you need as a character to have that target class. Does it make sense both way? Anti-armor either piercing or just percussive like a mace? Yes. You have your old hammer with a big dent the armor and then flip it and spike it. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, cool. Okay, so what I've done is, let's go back to this for a minute. And this is where I'm going to be fiddling about with some spreadsheets to have a look at some numbers and what it might mean to say, oh, this creature's got a target class of, and they're fighting a first level fighter, and that kind of thing. A normal hit, a special hit, and a critical hit. Typically, a special hit would do max normal damage and a critical hit, then does max damage and ignores armor reduction. Interesting. I like it. Cool. So what I'm looking at is combat and what that would mean in terms of frequency of hitting someone in combat, and how that feels as a kind of yardstick, and what someone would need to, what armor or dexterity or proficiency they'd need to have in order to get a target class. Because one thing that struck me was, instead of armor adding to your target class, increases your damage reduction. So if you're a fighter and you kind of balance out your armor penalty with your armor proficiency, then your target class is probably going to be about 13, which means you're going to get hit, you know, what, like 30%, 65% of the time, something like that. So, oh no, 50% of the time. There you go, with a level 1 fighter. So what I've done here, let's show you my spreadsheet. Oh, actually, first thing I need to remember to do is just to go back to here and show the proficiency. It would help if I could talk, considering this is a talking show. Proficiency, everyone is good at things, some things but not others. So I've got a leveling and tier of proficiency, your grade. So your novice, expert, master, and as you go up in levels, those improve, kind of combining D&D 5th ed and some of the Pathfinder stuff, neither of which I thought was on its own, because in Pathfinder you just have 2, 4, 6, 8 and it doesn't change, and your level is very important as part of your, you can do non-level proficiency, but it means you have to play around with the whole game and modify lots of creatures and stuff, and there's some deeper maths involved the longer you would play that game without level in proficiency. And in D&D it goes up with your level, but it's just one thing, and they have some weird crap in there like, oh, pick a skill and you can add half of your proficiency again on top, and it's like, just have another, because there's loads of things that do that. Why not just have another number? They try to keep it simple, but they second ed they were similar, also depending on the level of complexity you want, specials and criticals. Yeah, I don't want it to be too complicated. The combat, I don't want the combat to turn into like charts and tables and all that kind of stuff of looking things up. That would just be against. I'm trying to kind of have a rule complexity but presented in a straightforward, simple fashion that means people can get it easily and play it smoothly once they've gone through the first few levels a few times. Then they'll be like, great. But if you have to every combat check this versus that, and I mean in second edition, even in the rules cyclopedia, there's ridiculous tables in there of weapon modifiers for all weapons against all types of armor, and it's like, this weapon against chainmail shirt is -1, and against plate mail it's +1, and you're like, it's way too much pages of it, and you're like, yes, in a VTT, great, hidden, never show a player that, because that will turn them off your game unless they're really into crunch, and I find generally more people don't want to be faced with that kind of stuff because they feel like it's work rather than play. So this is fairly simple. It doesn't change all the time. You can have 3 numbers on your character sheet, novice, expert, master, and when you go up certain levels they will change. So a VTT will help, but it's not like super complex I've reduced the number of skills to make that a bit smoother, because I often find you've got like 30 skills and there's probably about 10 of them that actually get picked a lot, and there are a bunch that don't and could probably just be rolled up into others, so they may not literally make sense, but from a game perspective it makes sense. So yeah, so this is kind of proficiency. So if we look at this, a level 1 character will have novice proficiency in a weapon type, apart from a magic user. Magic user won't have any weapon proficiencies, but VTT to be an aid, not essential. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the world is not ready for purely VTT games. There's is it Brightburn or Byteburn or something? Oh, Roll20 only game, which is cool. Great idea for them to try that kind of thing. But I don't think most people yet would want to just play VTT forever. Funnily enough, we played one episode of Flint and Steel with a VTT in the room. So we had the computer set up with a big screen, and the players could see the map on the screen. We weren't using it for all the functionality, but it was quite cool having the map set up. So that was quite cool, and I can imagine if you actually had the functionality to be using it, then it'd be quite handy. There's a deep down part of me that's fought through all the years of the early D&D games and MERP and Rifts and things like that, who's like, no, you have to learn all the rules. You have to know the pain that I felt. But at the same time, I'm like, don't be stupid. That's just putting people off playing a game. So let's make it easy to play, but not simplistic. So tiers of proficiency that level up. Okay, but that's a little bit more complicated than D&D, slightly less complicated than Pathfinder 2. We've made attributes simpler, so I'm kind of looking at this kind of balancing seesaw of like, am I making the game overall more complicated? I don't think so yet. You know, I think hopefully it's going to make it slightly more approachable, but not less complicated. Anyway, attempting design, I was trying to get to go with formulas instead of tables. Yeah. So those are your kind of proficiencies. So if we think about this, a level 1 fighter or thief or cleric will have a +1. Now remember, you say +1, that's rubbish. Remember, I've said that level 1 and 2 are beginner levels, and really you should start the game at level 3 once you've played heroic deeds several times. You've seen the kind of deeds that get you to level 3, and you can say, right, I'm going to start as a level 3 character, and the deeds I completed were that one, and that one, so I'm a ranger. Cool, and we'll go from here. So level 3 will be +2 or +4 in as an expert. Now fighters will have the opportunity to become an expert in their weapons by level 3, but I think maybe thieves will, but or maybe clerics. I'm not sure who I want to be slightly better at fighting, but we'll keep it. So in our conversations tonight, we can have a fighter example at +4, and everyone else at kind of +2. But interesting to look at a level 1 character as well, just to see how long it would take them to batter someone to death, and that's kind of what I'm interested in, as how long it will take them to defeat their enemy, not batter them to death. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? So let's go over to my spreadsheet. So what I've got in here is I've got an attack bonus, which is made up of your strength and proficiency bonus. So we're talking about melee combat in this example, and then sorry, that should be frequency. Yeah, whatever. How often are you hitting this person? 25% of the time, 50% of the time, 75% of the time. Well, I need to roll a that's wrong, isn't it? It should be a 21. So if I'm hitting them 75% of the time, I need to roll a 6 or more, and with my attack bonus of 3, that would mean that that creature would have a target class of 9. So if there's a creature that has a -1 or to their total modifier of their armor, their target class, I'm going to do that a lot because I'm still learning my own game. So I'm going to say armor class occasionally or target class, so don't shoot me. So this is kind of like, this is a tough creature to hit. This is a medium creature to hit, and this is a easy creature to hit. Yeah. So if you go up against a creature that's got a target class of 19 at first level, you're going to hit them 25% of the time, and over 6 rounds you're going to do 9.75 points of damage to them if you're holding a longsword. This is kind of what I'm trying to set up here, to be like, how does this look? Sorry if I've just turned some people off by getting Excel out and doing some numbers. It's kind of like a bit like I like using a bit of Excel. It's good fun. Do it. I mean, although I do it all day, every day at work. Excuse me. Brain juice. At least it's not PowerPoint. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm not one of those person who fills PowerPoint slides with words. I just put a nice map on them and then talk about it. Cool. So what I'm setting up here is like, right, so this is basically our first level fighter, or cleric, or thief, whoever they may be, and for them to hit the kind of opponent that they would face and think, ooh, that's really tough to hit, is 19. Now what I'm thinking in my head is, how does a creature have a 19 target class? That would be an unarmored, dexterous fighter, or monk, or some creature that was extremely dexterous and had proficiency in unarmored. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about there. Target class 14. This is going to be someone with a good dexterity modifier, and their armor proficiency just outweighs their armor penalty. So that's probably someone in medium armor with armor proficiency, that this kind of, or light armor, that they're kind of overbalancing, and this is just someone who's like clumsy. Hey McNeils5, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. We're doing maths for hit probabilities and cumulative damage. So if you are hit someone who's really low target class with a longsword, and I've got the strength bonus adding in here as well. Yes, I have. Then you're going to be churning out a lot more damage. Just makes sense. In 6 rounds you're going to do nearly 30 points of damage. Let's make sure you can see all that. That's cool. Which makes sense. So if thinking about how long I would want combats to last is a thing, and when you start to redesign a whole game and swap around some of the core bits like armor class, you have to start to think about the consequences of that change and how that will balance out for your characters and your players, because you don't want your creatures taking huge amounts of time, you're doing good hits and all this kind of stuff, and it still takes like 8 rounds when you're a first level character, sorry. And if we remember, there will be minions in this, so there will be 1 hit point creatures which are there to be annoying. Yeah. Sounds rare. Yes. No, that was kind of the point I was making, Kargan. I'm thinking, how would you get 19 target class? That's pretty high. If your dex is +4, then we're going to be saying, oh, sorry. Then we need a +5, don't we? So yeah, that's pretty hardcore. So what would that be? That would be like a expert monk that you're fighting, yeah, at first level. Maybe that would be, and this is not saying that there is something like that, this is saying what would you hit 25% of the time. Exactly, expert in wearing no armor. Yeah, so you would get another 4 there, and then you'd be an 18. So just about. There might be some magical bonuses, you know, that kind of thing. So, or size modifiers. I have thinking about that kind of things. One of those barbarians in their leather loincloth. Well, maybe, maybe. Kargan, you have all. You go and think about your barbarians in their loincloths. So yeah, so that is hard to get. Target class won't go massively high because you will your proficiency will outweigh your armor penalty, but I've got to think about what those armor penalties will sit at. So what would I like? So we've got, let's just we've got 3 types here. So we've got light, medium, and heavy. If my warrior, my fighter, first level, has got a +1, he's got a 1 bonus to his. Here we go. Armor proficiency. Yeah, of 1. Yeah. Because he starts off with expert. Novice in unarmored, light armor, and medium armor. Yeah. And let's say he's taken the. Let's say they've taken the plus. I'm going to go with the. They've got +2 in strength and dex right now. Yeah. So if their armor proficiency is 1, what penalty would light, medium, or heavy have to your target class? Bearing in mind that, you know, when he's level 5, this will be 3. Yeah. So level 5, you should be like, I'm really good at fighting, I can move in all kinds of armor. Maybe heavy armor is -3. Yeah. And this is -2, and this is -1. And that kind of keeps it simple to begin with, to think about, you know, what is my TC equals TC, and we're going to go heavy 10 plus this plus this plus whoopsie daisy, whoopsie daisy. Right. So, a first level fighter with a armor proficiency of 1 in heavy armor has got a TC of 10. But he doesn't even have proficiency in heavy armor to begin with. So he might be wearing medium armor, in which case his target class is 11. So he's going to get hit all over the place. So maybe the base needs to be higher than 10. Yeah, and this is where we have to do the jiggery pokery to say, how does this balance out? So you don't want him to be super easy to hit, but you want him to be to represent the fact that we're changed the way combat works. You're going to get a bit hit a bit more often, but you're going to take less damage because you're wearing your armor. That's the idea. And then as you level up, once you get to level 5, right, my target class is now 13. It's pretty low. It's pretty low, but against a level 5 character, you know, I'm going to be hitting. Here we go. Oh, here we go. What I've done here is I've done a reverse calculation. So we can say, what if my target class is that? There you go. I'm going to hit him 60% of the time. And if he's fighting against a longsword wielding character with the same strength as him, then he's going to be defeated in 3 rounds. Wow. Deadly combat. So what if the base is 12? 4 rounds. What if the base is 14? 4 rounds. Yeah, so this is where it starts to get interesting and start to say, when we reverse it, oh, our fighter's he's gonna have be a human, so he's got 3 extra hit points. He's gonna have Constitution of +2, so that's 2 extra points. So he's gonna have 15 hit points. Okay, so a first level fighter fighting himself could last 5 rounds. That's not bad. That's not bad, considering you're first level. That's pretty good. So maybe we just need to have the base modifier slightly higher to reflect this, and characters need to be a bit more aware that their combat is a bit more deadly. It's the fantasy of combat is that you are getting hit, you know, and things are battering into your armor. What does a shield do? More DR or lower TC? Now this is a very good question, Kargan. I thought that wielding 2 weapons in melee would increase your target class, and having a shield would increase your damage reduction. Because a shield, if anything, you're going to get hit on the shield. You're more likely to get hit, if you see what I mean, because you're deliberately trying to block it with your shield. So, but I didn't want it to be like there were a penalty to target class for having a shield. I think the shield will increase your damage reduction. I think so. I need to do a bit more. Shield also reduces rain soak value. Ranged soak value. Or you're talking about the rain, you put a shield over your head and you don't get covered in rain, don't get soaked. But then I thought, well, hang on, shields will do something different for ranged combat. As with having 2 weapons, you're not going to really block a crossbow bolt, really. You're not a Jedi. I don't know how realistic that is. Using your 2 weapons to like block arrows out of the air or something like that. That feels a little bit. But we are talking about heroic deeds, and this is where I start to get into this world of how heroic do I want it to be, and how old school do I want it to be. Do I want it to be closer? I want it to be a bit gritty. I like gritty. Yeah. See, Kargan, you've probably got it. Could be TC value due to size. Say medium shield size 2. If you get hit by 2 points, shield is hit. Yeah, I was toying with that, kind of like it having then giving you a little bracket above your target class, so your target class becomes 13, 15. But it just adds like a step in where people are like, what does that mean? Which number am I looking at? That kind of thing. I like Kargan's thing, and also that probably works better with the fact that I'm using 3 actions per round. So like Pathfinder, you have to raise your shield, or you have to use your reaction to block. So buffer zone. Could be TC buffer zone. On a more seriously, to bash people and not them around. Well, yeah. I think in melee combat, if you've got 2 things in your hands, you're going to be harder to hit. I think, but because as long as you're proficient with them, but you'll be able to use a shield to do an active like big block to like take a bigger damage reduction, which is why you have a shield versus having 2 swords. You're harder to hit because you're like parrying, but you'll be able to do more damage maybe. Or I was thinking your minimum damage would always be 2 or something like that. Shield size equals X% to deflect missile fire. No, sorry JNov36, this isn't a D100 game, this is a D&D rebuild. But yeah, it could be like, I think a shield might give you a target class bonus against missile weapons, but I don't want to have it like on my shield, if I use it against this it works that way, and if I use it against that it works that way, and I use it works that way. I think it needs to be like if you hold two things in melee, you get a bonus to your target class, whether that's another sword because you're better at kind of parrying and blocking, or whether a shield. If you can make a shield action, which is in the action list, to like block an attack, and that can be a shot or a hit, and that will absorb more damage. I think that's how it's going to work. So yeah, I think that kind of thing. Some of the creatures I've created. So hang on, let me see if I can. Yeah, it can be, but all the rolls I'm doing for D20 rolls are against a difficulty class. So it could be that you have a roll against a difficulty class, but I think it fits more with the combat if it's an action that you do, and you say, because, and I'll tell you why. Let me find this. Where did I put it? Goblins. Aha. Because, and I need to change these now because these have armor class, and it won't be armor class. We'll have target class and damage reduction. Yeah, and I'll need to figure those bits out. But some of them do have an ability, shield block. So it's a reaction. Brigand takes damage from a melee attack and still has the shield in hand. The effect is the grunt raises its shield to absorb up to 10 damage from the melee attack. The shield is lost and the soldier suffers -1 armor class. Obviously that armor class specific bit will change. But that's like giving a minion or a soldier something annoying that they can do to keep them around. They can only do it once, and it can only do up to a certain level of damage. But it may be that you could, your shield can do that. You can use an action to do that. Whether or not it lasts, or how long it lasts, and all that kind of stuff is interesting. I think the Pathfinder has like hardness and hit points and various things, and it feels like it's a slightly convoluted. It feels slightly too many numbers for what it is. I want a shield to absorb a certain amount of damage on an attack. I think that's what it will be. So you'll have like a shield. Someone was saying like a size thing. 2 points shield is hit. Something like that, but I think instead it will be like a damage reduction for like an active block. So if you use your reaction to block a particular attack, it will just bump your damage reduction by 4 for a heavy shield or something like that. Numbers to be worked out, but I think that's how it's going to work. So if you're in combat and you're holding two weapons that you're proficient in, two things that you're proficient in, then you get a bonus to your target class because you're harder to hit because you're fighting against melee opponents. And then, or I may just have it against everyone because that just makes it simpler. And I like the idea of thinking about it now, I actually like the idea of, when Aragorn knocks the thrown dagger out of the air, which he actually did for real, apparently. And that kind of thing. It makes it a bit more heroic. So I want to have a few little heroic things in there, and it makes it simpler, which is important. So wielding two things you're proficient in gives you that bonus to target class. And if one of them is a shield and you're proficient in that level of shield, because shields are just going to be absorbed into their level of armor. So light armor will include light shields. Then you can use it to block, and it'll increase your damage reduction by its value if you use your reaction to block with it. I think that's probably the best way to do it within the rules that I have defined. I should probably write that down somewhere. Let's go down to the bottom of my document here and just whack it at the bottom. Holding two weapons you are proficient. Because I was thinking, because I want to have two weapon fighting have some cool stuff for like the ranger and the fighter and the dungeoneer and the thief. Because I think it'd be quite cool, like do a dual strike and you get to make one roll. It takes two actions. You make one roll with your best attack. You can roll your main weapon damage plus your modifier plus your second weapon damage die. So it kind of makes it easier for you to do better damage. And various other things like a parry riposte if you're holding two weapons as a reaction. You know, when you're higher level, you can like could do a block and then attack. You may be able to do a parry as well if you're a fighter, which would allow you to simulate like a shield type effect. Maybe we'll see. I'm trying to think of how to. It is, Jason. It is my own fantasy heartbreaker. Absolutely. I am just working on a bit of a rebuild of D&D for fun, which I will probably try and crowdfund at some point, because yeah, we've got a great community, and welcome to the chat. And you know, after getting Dodeca published, kickstarted last year, and that all done, that was good fun. I want to do another one. And I thought that this might be a bit of fun. So let's turn that off. So holding two weapons you are proficient in gives you a TC bonus. A shield can be used with an action to provide a boost to damage reduction. Cool. Do you sell on Drive-Thru RPG? Yes, I do. You can go and get it there. It's old school D12 dice pool mechanics with great flavour, and it's kind of narrative character creation. You don't define your character. You roll 5 descriptive sentences that give you bonuses to certain stats and things, but then you use those sentences in a little narrative, your legend, to kind of then describe your character. It's good fun. It's pretty simple. It's 60 pages, nothing crazy, some great artwork. Yeah, D12s are an underappreciated dice. They are the best dice physically for rolling, because they don't roll too far and they don't roll too short, and it's a great polyhedral shape. Anyway, stop going on about D12s. They are good fun, and it's yeah, Dodeca. We've done a couple of games on the channel, so we've got it on YouTube. So you can go and find Dodeca on our YouTube channel, and we go through how the rules work, character creation, and then some stories. We did a cyberpunk one. It's settingless. It's kind of a grimdark engine for any kind of world, and you generate the world with 5 sentences. You generate your character with 5 sentences. You generate the monsters with 5 sentences, and it's 5 because the faces on a D12 have 5 sides. Yeah, anyway. So that was a conversation with Jonathan Hicks one day on Facebook about 12-sided dice being underappreciated, and I thought, well, I'm going to make a game with 12-sided dice. Anyway, rambling aside, I'm very good at rambling. Right, so there we go. We got that in there, so that's cool. So yeah, I'm going to need to redesign the monsters a little bit so that they have target class now and damage reduction based on their armor. But I quite like the idea that you know, having 2 weapons makes you harder to hit as well, because you're just got stuff in your hands protecting yourself, and you're going to flail out with it, but only if you're proficient. So if you're proficient using 2 things, whether that's a shield or another weapon, you get a bonus to your target class. Oh, that's great. I love it when the chat helps me like figure something out, poke awkward questions at me, and then it makes me really think about what's going on in the game as I've written it so far, and how that might actually come together. So that's really cool. So that's good. Right, where are we? What are we doing? Oh, we're back on the spreadsheet, weren't we? So this is our fighter, right? Set him back to base 10. Okay, so let's say he's got a dex of +2. His armor proficiency at first level is 1, yeah, and he's wearing medium armor. He's going to have, so he's got like a chain shirt on, fairly standard. He's going to have a target class of 11. He's got 11 target class. He's got 15 hit points, It's going to be a hit 60% of the time, 3.9 damage per round if hit by themselves, and that means they're dead in 4 rounds. However, they are wearing armor. So this is the penalty. Sorry, as usual, anyone who, if anyone I work with watches this, they will recognise my kind of mess of Excel. It's kind of random. It's like a kind of thought explosion on the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put damage reduction there, right? And I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 in just as a kind of a starter for 10, right? And if we go this equals pop pop. There we go. So I'm using medium armor just so it updates as well. So it's like a model, building a model for combat. So damage per round, that's not going to be the case, is it? That's going to be minus the damage reduction, but we have a minimum value of 1. Whoa. So the character, it suddenly changes the whole picture. Look at that. So the first level fighter has got this fighter is fighting a doppelganger. That's how we should picture this fight, right? Fighting a doppelganger. And they are wearing medium armor and are proficient in it. Yeah. So therefore their target class is 11. They've got a damage reduction of 2 and 15 hit points. It's going to take 15 rounds to kill this fighter because you're only going to do 1 damage a round. Now that's not quite right. Damage reduction works slightly differently because we're doing average damage here rather than on a round. So, will it probably calculate out the same, won't it? Or will it? I can't be bothered to do all the... Oh, here we go. If I do, someone who's better at maths than me, tell me if I subtract the damage reduction on every average damage per round versus the one, because it would just be a 1 reduction per actual hit, not. Yeah, so we need to multiply the damage reduction by the chance to hit as well. I think that's what will do it. Still hits that minimum of 1. Oh no. Max, sorry. That's silly. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, okay. Here we go. I'm missing a thingy. Okay. Just delete that. Go undo. So that should say max, not min. What am I doing? Yeah, that's fine. There we go. Okay. Right, that's better. Yeah, so they're only applying the damage by the chance to hit, so we should only apply their damage reduction by the chance to hit to see how many rounds they survive. So without any damage reduction, they last 4 rounds, but with the 2 damage reduction, they last 6 rounds. There we go. That's better. Can it do your taxes? Probably. So that's cool. That I actually like. Yeah. So target class is 11, which sounds shonk, but the damage reduction is 2. So every time they're getting hit, the damage is getting reduced by 2, and they're only taking like 6.5 damage on average. And yeah, okay. So that feels not too bad. If that goes to 12, then it takes 7 rounds to defeat himself. Interesting. Yeah, so I don't want it to be too high as well though. So if the base is 12, right, and we are suddenly a master, fourth level, and we're a master in our armor, let's just say for argument's sake, my target class is 18, yeah, and I'm gonna be taking 14 rounds to go down, which, you know, if you think about it, is a well-armored, tough character. They should take some time to go down. And this is thinking one-on-one. So, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is it's going to require. You see, that feels better. That feels better. Base 10, armor proficiency of 6 means you got a -2, so you've got target class of 16, damage reduction of 2, and you get more hit points at that stage, aren't you? So if you're when can you get a 6? Probably level 4. It's level 4. You get another. So per level, you would get, what is it? 5.5, 7.5, 21, 22.5. So let's say that's 37 hit points. It's going to take a while, or multiple opponents to take down a 4th level fighter who's a master in medium armor, who knows how to use it, who knows how to fight. Yeah. Okay. Multiple opponents doing 1d8 plus 2 damage. And there will be abilities and feats and things that will allow you to increase your damage output as you go up. So a high level creature will do more damage with some of its attacks. I think, where's the Hobgoblin Bloodcaster? I love the Hobgoblin Bloodcaster, by the way. So there's one of these creatures I created. Bloodcaller, sorry. They, what is it? Target must make a DC 15 spell save or suffer 2d6 bludgeoning damage. That might need upping, considering this is a 3 hit dice creature. And this is where it all starts to come in, with creature design, character design, those base rules. How do they all work together? What does that mean? What should I give this Bloodcaller to make a fighter shit their pants when they see a Bloodcaller, but not instantly run away, but think, fuck, I don't want this Bloodcaller pointing its finger at me too much, because I'm going to take a real hammering. You know, if they've got 37 hit points, if you say 2d6 damage, they're probably going to be a bit worried about that. You know. It's still only going to be average 7 damage. So maybe that needs to be 3d6 damage. Maybe. Who knows? The short sword's not much of a threat. The veteran, for example, here. I'm not sure. Can you see this okay on the screen? Yeah, you can. Savage strength. They can spend a hit die after making a successful melee attack. Add an additional 1d4 to the damage of the attack. So this is like a player characters, fighters that spend a hit die. If they have Mighty Blow, I think it's called, can add 1d6 to their damage because they like dig deep and they whack. So I've given this creature like a weaker version of that, but maybe if it's a 2 hit dice monster, that should be a 1d6. But then you're doing a d8 and a d6 and d3 and plus 3. So you're talking, 4.5 with a d6, that'd be 3.5. So you're talking 8, 11 points of damage. That's pretty nasty, but they have to spend a hit die to do that. And they've only got 2 hit dice. So that's kind of limiting, built-in limiter to how much they can do their savage strength. My Talon's Grip, yeah, says DC 15 spell save against a fighter. It's probably going to have not a great spell save, so that's probably fairly likely to work was their save proficiency would probably be maximum +4, and they're probably going to have maximum +1. So 5, 10, so like a 50-50 save. Maybe that DC needs to be higher. See, this is what all comes in. So it's great fun. What we're going to do is we're going to create the first stuff. I think what I might do is just get a fighter and get one of our patrons. Some of you who are watching right now, check out our Patreon, by the way. We play games with our patrons, and we give them cool stuff. Get a fighter, get a patron, or a few patrons, and give them each a fighter. Just a level 1 fighter, no extra feats or anything. And then we'll just do like some scenarios where I go, right, here are 4 brigands, here are 4 grunts, here's 2 assassins, here's 3 minions and a veteran, you know, that kind of thing, and see how the combat plays out and how it feels, you know, because what I'm quite interested in is how the game feels. So mechanics are important, but what do those mechanics simulate? What behavior do they instigate? How do people play the game? You know, I like the idea of patron deathmatch. Now that is a cracking idea, Naren Ezeka. Right, I think we'll have a patron deathmatch. I'd like to have a few monsters thrown in as well to see how the monsters work. But then I think we'll have a fighter and a cleric and a thief have a fight or something like that. We can see. Cool. So that's cool. That's all good. I know we need to change some of this now, so I'm going to make a note of that on my. Actually, I know I need to come back and do those again. So I think the other ones are probably okay. The difference is I need to think about their damage reduction. So if, for example, this grunt was actually, they actually are pretty much the fighter that we've described. They've got +2 strength, they're wearing medium armor, so they will get those same penalties. So they will, I mean, they're going to go down pretty quick because they're just a minion, but that's the whole point of a minion. It's just there to provide a heroic environment of a target-rich environment for the heroes to run through and sort of slay a few bad guys and then get to the big bad guy and we've got to fight him, and he's got some special abilities and stuff, you know. And the minions, who, you know, the Hobgoblin Brigand has got return fire, so if they get missed by a ranged attack, they're kind of like, and they can use their reaction to fire back because someone's trying to kill them, so they're like, fuck off, and that means they get to make another attack, which is quite good fun. It makes them annoying. It makes them slightly interesting as well, you know, to have something like that rather than just sort of swing and a miss and a sword or a bow, you know. Trying to make the creatures a little bit interesting. The Hobgoblin Assassin, for example, it's got the poison. Takes 2 poison damage each round. So I'll need to comment in there, you know, or say that armor doesn't affect poison damage. It would affect the dagger. So what's this? The assassin deploys a powerful poison. Action 2. The assassin spends a hit die and then makes a melee or ranged. Exactly. DR wouldn't help them with minion if every hit does 1 hit point, then every hit kills. Count them, that's the whole point of minions. They are 1-hit kills. If you hit them, they're going to die. That's on purpose. It's I know damage reduction wouldn't help them, but if they're wearing a chain shirt, then a chain shirt has damage reduction. So it's kind of like, do I not put it on their block and have to have, yeah, maybe. But then people will be like, isn't there damage reduction on those things? Damned if you do and damned if you don't. So this is interesting, yeah, 2 poison damage. I don't know whether I should write in here in the text of that attack so that you know, looking at that attack, not affected by damage reduction, or that poison itself isn't affected by damage reduction unless specifically stated, like dwarves have some poison damage reduction. True, they could be running around in their underpants and forego armor. They could do. They could do. They could indeed run around in their pants and forego armor. That's an interesting point, actually, isn't it? Because they're surely none of your minions, but that's the difference between the fantasy of the game and the mechanics of the game. Yeah, no armor, higher TC. So maybe damage reduction can cancel out an attack. Otherwise the minions bit starts to unravel. This is why you need to poke and prod at all these gaps. It's a good point. Good point. I need to have a think about that. Because he wouldn't bother wearing a chain shirt then, would he? He'd run around in the nud. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's got me thinking, as you can tell. I'm gonna have to reevaluate slightly, because I do like that idea of hit. Maybe not. Because damage reduction in other game in D&D can negate completely, can't it? Is that right? That would be interesting then, because a minion, basically, you'd have to do a strong enough hit to kill a minion. And you'd be swinging, and you could see that the damage reduction was 2. And you'd be thinking, oh, I've got to do 3 points of damage to kill this creature. And it's most likely going to happen, especially if you're a fighter with, +2 or greater strength. You're going to do at least 3 or 4 points of damage. But yeah. I will have a think about that one. I'll make a note of that. Let's consider. Need to consider minions when finalizing DR. Can it reduce an attack to 0? If not, minions wouldn't bother wearing it. Just so I can remember. I mean, I could always watch this back, but it's good to have a note, just a note in my document to say the kind of thing that we've spoken about. And that's good to, as I said earlier on, it's good for you guys to be poking and prodding me, which is why it's helpful to have people watching while you're doing a dev stream to quiz you and question you. So thank you very much. I think I will probably have to change that then, so that damage reduction can reduce an attack to nothing. Oh, hang on, here you go. And that's when something can have a feature like piercing or something like that, which means they always do 1 point of damage, like a special weapon. Excuse me, sorry about that, a little bit of a cough. Yeah, so I think that opens up an opportunity to have a feat for fighters, or a weapon type that means they are sharp or piercing or something like that, means they always do 1 point of damage, and that becomes pretty handy. Also, if always do 1 hit point, then every hit with poison. Oh, was it a case if it does damage, then it's... yeah, see, that's what happens when you change one thing and you haven't changed everything else. If the strike is successful, the target takes 2 poison damage. Yeah, so that should say if the strike does damage, then the target takes poison damage. Because that makes sense. Okay, we need to... This is like my my to-do list then. To-do list. Here we go. Let's turn that off. Maybe. Interesting. Okay, so need to update Goblin AC to TC and DR. Cool. Need to update Hobgoblin Assassin Poison text. Yeah, because that's the whole point then. See, that makes his attack even better. That's one thing, that's a side effect that I hadn't anticipated. So Goblin Assassin is particularly annoying. So if he gets a point of damage on you, then 2 points of damage is going to go every turn without your damage reduction coming off of it. And in this game, I have stated at the beginning that the specific overrules the general. So it'll say, you know, poison doesn't take off damage reduction, but then you might be a dwarf and it says you always do take 1 point less from poison or something. Somebody's bell will make them sit and reconsider. Yeah, I'm just trying to think how to do it simply. I don't want to then go, oh, I've got a bludgeoning weapon. What does the bludgeoning rules mean? Unless I've specifically got a feat that allows me to take advantage of it. So it may be that you've got a feat called Bell Ringer, and if you're using a bludgeoning weapon on an armored opponent, you always do at least 1 point of damage. Something like that, you know. Might need piercing, exceeding TC by enough, ignoring some DR, getting in joints. Yeah, again, it starts to get a bit tricky. I think I'm just gonna use the feats from you fight in a certain way. So you fight against an armored opponent using a bludgeoning weapon. Defeat 10 opponents using a bludgeoning weapon. Yeah, and then you will gain the feat Bellringer. And then the flavor text will be like, you're so used to like concussive strikes on your opponents and knowing where to hit them on their joints and their head and weak points to inflict damage even if you don't break through their armor. And then it's kind of like, if you're using a bludgeoning weapon against an armored opponent, you always do at least 1 point of damage. Something like that. And then you're whittling people down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Assassins use piercing to deliver poison, something like that. So the monster powers are going to be different to the feats that the heroes get. So exactly, the assassin character will be able to do something with poisons and that kind of stuff. But a monster assassin will have an ability that's poison related, but it won't follow exactly the same rules as the player feats. I don't want it to be like that. I want the monsters. This is one of the things I learned from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition. I want the monster to have everything in there, in the monster, that you need for the monster. You know, I don't want it to say this monster is daunting, and then you have to go and look up what daunting means. It's great in a VTT because you click on daunting and then it comes up with whatever, you know. But I want to have a look like the D&D ones where it's like, bosh, there's everything I need, but with something a bit funky that allows them to be like, I can do this cool thing, pull it out of the bag, and not just be, I'm a hobgoblin, I've got a sword, whack. They have like a little extra thing. Yeah, and I think that's cool. I think that's more useful to Games Masters, Dungeon Masters. And the other thing about Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition was they said, oh, all of these are base monsters, and here's a load of tools and things to create different monsters. And I was like, I mean, some people have time, and maybe if I was young again, and at uni or, you know, hanging out on my own, you know, after work when I was 20, in the pub, I could write down a whole load of different creatures, but nowadays, especially when running Flint and Steel, you know, young kids, job, all that stuff, didn't have a lot of time to sit down and like, I had to make the adventure, and I didn't have time to sit down and like redesign all the monsters. So often I was throwing like base creatures against the heroes, and they were just murdering all of them because they had no chance to hit them and no chance to do anything. Their stats were also every monster's weapon skill was very low. And then people always say, oh, you're not doing it right, you've got to go in and pick all the extra things to make them elite, or whether they this, or they that, or they that. And I'm like, just give me 5 types of fucking orc. That'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? But they didn't do that. They just said, oh, here's an orc, here's a standard orc, here's a standard... Fimir was the one for me. I love the Fimir. And I was like, throwing Fimir at them, and they just were waffing everywhere. And the heroes were just chopping them all up, and I was like, I can't seem to hit anyone. And they had strikes that needed advantage, like their tail. I think their tail attack was pretty bad, pretty nasty, but you needed advantage to spend on it, and I could never get advantage because I couldn't win a round of combat because it was always an opposed roll. The heroes would always have a really high skill level, get better success levels. It just meant they were always losing, and I was like, I think in a couple of fights on the fly, I just increased their weapon skill by 20 because I was like, he's a slightly better fighter. But you know, that's why that's why I've done this. Is just from my kind of playtest. You know, I've got some hobgoblins. I've got 5 different hobgoblins. You know, we've got like some fighty ones, so we've got a shooty one, a fighty one. They're both minions. A stabby one, a proper fighty one, and then a magic user. And that's enough to have a go with some different abilities, some different skills, some different levels of hit points and damage and all that kind of stuff. See if it works, you know. And then ultimately I'd have like 10 types of hobgoblin, and there would be, or maybe I'd stick with these 5 and think, actually that's really good, they cover a good broad base. I'm only looking at level 1 to 5 to begin with. It's going to be like a basic version of the game, and you know, how does that work? If it works, great. I think people would look at this and go, oh, that's cool, I've got different things I can use there. I could have a blood caller with a whole load of grunts, yeah, so he's got all these minions who are doing his bidding, running around beating people up. And if we go down here to dark demands, the blood caller extracts the life energy from those around them in order to fuel their magic. Blood caller targets a friendly minion within 30/5 30 feet 5 squares. That should be 36, shouldn't it? That's really bad. Target minion falls to ground, a dead husk, and the blood caller restores 1 hit die. So to do more magic stuff, you know, I want to try and mix it up a bit, so it's kind of interesting. Cool. Okay, so building a bit of a to-do list for some of these bits. The shield stuff was good. Figuring it out with minions is good. That's cool. I'm going to update those hobgoblins, and I think soon. What have we got? Ancestries. So I've narrowed it down to 10 ancestries for the beginning game. These are kind of the main intelligent. There are others, so I haven't got minotaurs on here. I haven't got hawk folk. I haven't got my plant folk or branch folk, I think I'm going to call them. You know, some of the more strange, weird and wonderful ones. And what I'm just doing is filling out their feat choices. I'm just coming up with those. But you get boost to 1 attribute, a +1 to your attribute, and you get to boost another one by +1 of your choice, so it could be anything. And you get to pick 1 skill that you upgrade your proficiency in. So that might mean that, you know, you pick an ancestry, you get craft, you pick your background, you get craft, you become an expert in craft at the beginning. I'm allowing that with skills, because I think, you know, that just means you're a bloody good craftsman before you decided to become an adventurer. I don't think you have to be a level 10 fighter before you can be a master craftsman. And then some feats, and these are going to be, you know, the kind of ancestral abilities that you generally see, with a little twist on them, because I want these ancestries to be a bit more representative of the worlds, the layers of the world mountain from which they come. And then your hit point bonus. So it's like a small hit point boost at the beginning for everybody, and it's 2, 3, or 4 based on how hardy your ancestry is. So elves are more frail than humans, who are more frail than dwarves, for example. Yes, that's cool. Backgrounds will give you, I haven't done those yet, put them in there. I'm still working on those. And then you've got your classes. So you've got your cleric, which goes into druid, inquisitor, monk, and templar. Fighter, that goes into berserker, commander, paladin, and ranger. I don't like a class called barbarian, doesn't make sense to me. Magic user, we've got bloodcaster, ice seeker, rune wielder, and spell sword. So these are about the magic, different types of magic that I want to have in the world mountain world. So there's something about the water that comes down from Harlig through the Sky Islands of Yanath and onto Glorium. When it settles on Glorium, it kind of takes in the power of the Verdants, flows down onto Arlon, and people seek out rivers running of this water and ice that's formed. And the Ice Seeker is a type of magic user that can take the power out of this ice, which doesn't melt unless you take the power out of it, or extremes happen, some extreme things, which I'm yet to decide on. Rune wielder is like it's the dwarven magic of old, the naming of things. Name has power. Carve that into stone or some other material. I can use that, and they're going to be a bit like, they can like carve runes into things and place them on things, and do that kind of stuff. They will also be the teleportation people, because all the runic gates are the kind of teleportation circles of my world that kind of link distant places together, which is one of the things that the guys running through roads and ruins are kind of dabbling with at the moment. And then spell sword, it's kind of the magic of steel, as it were, the magic of crafting. They focus their magic through steel, but more importantly through kind of items as well. So they're going to be kind of psychometry kind of thing, where they can do spells around objects as well. A little bit of that. And then thieves, we're going to have assassin. It's going to have surprise attacks and poisons. The bard, magic dwarfs. Yes, magic rune wielder for the win. Wojciech, I know you're going to be a rune wielder as soon as you can. So thief, we're going to have assassin. He's going to be a bit tougher than the other thieves and less skillful, more combat and killing people. Obviously it's an assassin. The bard is going to have inspiration and have magic, so they all have spells. The dungeoneer is specializing in dungeon crawling, so traps, monsters, that kind of stuff. And then the inventor is like to tinker with mechanisms, so you can make traps and make mechanical devices and gunpowder weapons and all that kind of stuff, so that'd be cool. Lots more to come on all that, and I'm going to do levels 1 to 5 for the cleric, fighter, magic user, and thief, and then levels 3 to 5 will be, in effect, we'll have druid, all the others from so that's cool. Yeah, cleric. So basically, cleric, you don't pick in a way, you don't pick the god that you follow until 3rd level. So if you want to become like a pure cleric, you can, and at 3rd level you pick the god that you devote yourself to. Because I was thinking about this, and I've seen other people kind of build pantheons very similar to historical mythological pantheons of Earth, and I think that I have a slightly different perspective on it. Those gods weren't real, and we created gods. Past civilizations created gods to represent facets of the world around them, to explain the great mysteries, or why there's thunder in the sky and why the sea comes in, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in Ondrum, the gods are real, and they are there, and there are powers that are visible. The mountain itself is a power. Ondrum is the god, but then the the Verdants and the Darkness. The Verdants in Glorium and the Darkness in Udril are both things that collided with the World Mountain, and their powers themselves, and they generated things out of them. And these forces are known, so it's not a case of people go and decide, create a new god of war. The god of war is this god. They will see different virtues and assets and heroes of that god, but it's not up for debate. Like, oh no, we've started we believe this person's the god of war. It's like, no, that it's intrinsically known. It's like a law. It's like a thing of the world that these are the powers and the gods. So clerics at levels 1 and 2 are just characters that have tapped into divine power somehow. They haven't. It's not focused. It's not channeled into any one particular divine entity. There's so many gods and there's so much divine power in the world, and these are the people who have tapped into it. So they're kind of warriors with divine powers that come from this, and they will use their magic at the beginning, very small fashion. I think they're going to make it so their magic, it doesn't quite kick in until 3rd level, which is when like novitiates before taking final vows, kind of thing. You know, the gods are real, we know they're there's so much divine power. Some people tap into it. It's almost a bit like Warlocky in D&D 5th edition, where there's like these big powers and you're getting some energy from them, but without signing up to anyone. Because I was thinking Warlocks are basically just clerics, just people want an easy wizard, so they're playing that kind of character. But anyway, and you can either say, right, I'm specifically going to go and follow a particular god, or you can say, as a druid, you're going to focus on the divine element of nature, which is the Verdants, or you can kind of go a slightly different angle. So Inquisitor is someone who carries on taking the divine power, but it's trying to unravel kind of the secrets and relics of the world, and make sure they don't fall into dark or evil hands. The monk is someone who then starts to silence must be full of atheists. Yeah. The monk sees that divine power and wants to like explore it spiritually, internally, improve themselves, become like a vessel for pure physical and spirit. And then the Templar is actually someone who, I think the Templar will pick a god, will pick a faith to one particular angle, because they are kind of like a defender of that faith rather than a representative of it, if that makes sense. They kind of they learn martial skills, so they're slightly more combat capable and slightly less magically powerful, because their job is to protect their faith and the people who follow them from outsiders. So I can look up and see the Dreamer. It is a bit difficult. But people don't really think it's a world where there's undeniable gods. So people are like, yeah, there are gods. And I have this I was thinking about like Greek myths and legends, and like Perseus and Theseus and all these kinds of characters who, Ajax and all this kind of stuff. Just like it's a really cool idea to kind of like have heroes of legend. I was thinking there's the different ages of the world, and there's the age of formation, and there's the age of, oh god, I can't remember off the top of my head. There's one about heroics, like Age of Heroes kind of thing. I was thinking at that time that some of the gods lifted others up to become kind of heroes, and things like Thedaros, who is the god of kind of competition and challenge, may be that kind of character. So I'm thinking about the pantheon a little bit. But there's the point of that whole conversation was that there's like this divine power through the world that occasionally picks people up and wraps them up with it, and they become clerics, and then they focus it as they go along. So atheists in that kind of setting would just believe the gods are like a race of really powerful creatures. Powerful, yeah. And they may even, point to the stories of the Verdants and Valtei coming from the Ether Beyond and crashing into the World Mountain as it drifted through the ether as evidence of that. That clearly there's powerful creatures out there who are they're not gods. They're just more powerful than we are. It's like Stargate, isn't it? It's like Stargate. Autocorrect evil. Yep. Yeah. So that's cool. So that is that's a bit about that. That's cool. I've gone through the spreadsheet. That's cool. I need to use that to figure out how that's gonna weigh fully. So that's cool. And we've gone through that. So that's cool. Close that one. Cool. Okay. Right. Well, I think that's probably. I mean, that's pretty good. We've figured some bits out. We've tried out some numbers to see how target class and damage reduction hold up, and it seems okay. I think it needs a bit of play testing, but I think so far it looks okay. If I just stick to those numbers, there's not much flexibility in those numbers. That's the one thing. That was the one thing I was going to say. So if we look at these numbers over here, yeah. So we've got light, medium, heavy, -1, 1. Maybe I'll just have it that they have a factor, and maybe you subtract that from your target class and add it to your damage reduction. But I'm not sure. I think it might be good to have armors that are slightly different, but we have another factor that comes in. That means they're difficult to do physical skills in or something. Because having just all your light armors have -1, 1, it's like, well, why would you surely just describe it as light armor then? What's the difference between leather and padded? But if I had a leather armor that was -1 and 2, you'd be like, shit, I'm not buying that medium armor, I'm going to buy that light armor. There's no point buying that medium armor. So I think I need to be a bit careful about some of those stats. And then I also need to think about magic armor, and whether you have two types of magic armor, light and thick, or dense, or whatever, and yeah, so there's a few things to think about here still, but I like the direction it's going in. I think this would stand up to a bit of play testing and probably give a good idea for how to tweak it a little bit, just to make it work right. So this guy, I mean, armor proficiency of 6 is crazy. Someone would be doing a lot more damage to them if they had that high level, and they were, I think that was level 4, wasn't it? So if they were level 1 and they had 15 hit points, let's put at level 3, you probably got expert in the armor that you're going to be wearing, and as a fighter you would have gained 7.5, 15, another 15 hit points, so you'll be on 30 hit points. So yeah, it's you can get hit 45% of the time, and you're gonna get defeated in 15 rounds with one opponent. So this is where you know, to have two opponents is half the time, or as you're a third level creature, you're fighting a 3 hit dice monster. They will be able to dish out 7 points of, as we saw with the blood caller. They can do 2d6 bludgeoning damage to you from afar. with their blood caller magic reaching out and crushing your innards from afar. No damage reduction. Nice. That's good. That makes them a threat. That's good. Then that would go a lot quicker. So if you could do 7 damage a round, then that fighter would go down in 5 rounds. Maybe, yeah, he's got 3 hit dice, so he could do that 3 times. He'd have to absorb the health from several minions. So 7 damage, 5 rounds. Yeah, okay, that feels about right. You could do 3 of those. They're pretty painful, and they might be a 12, you know. So I think that's probably actually not too bad. 2d6. I will have a think about that and we will play test it. They ignore invulnerable save. yeah. My 2-up invuln save. You're like, oh god. Annoying. Cool. Okay. It's given me a lot to think about tonight. It's been a very, very useful session. But I think I'm probably going to round up this stream now. It's been very interesting. I need to go away and fiddle with some things, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck some stuff at the patrons and see if they would like to. I'm sure they'll be up for giving it a little go once I've kind of moved out of my house. Have a little go with some fighters versus hobgoblins. I think that could be quite cool. Like 3 fighters and different scenarios with hobgoblins, just to see how quickly or how different it is. So we could like 3 fighters against 6 minion melee hobgoblins. How does that work? How much do they get battered? And this will help me start to figure out how difficult we should make each of the monsters, you know, and that whole balancing act of, you know, challenge rating or whatever you want to call it in D&D. And Pathfinder's good. They just give them a level. You just say this is a, you know, level 7 dragon. Go for it. But they're kind of pretty standard rules throughout Pathfinder, so you know what the damage will be and what the level will be. So it's kind of somewhere in between the two. So we shall see. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, guys in chat, for helping me out with that. It's very very cool to think through some of that. Enjoying this conversation and the one we're having on the Discord as well. If you are watching this back, or you're in the chat right now and you're not on the Discord or not joining in that chat, then please feel free to. The more people who kind of grill me on it, the better. And yeah, help my thinking, improve my thinking. Cool. Okay, well, what have we got going on for the rest of the week? I think we're supposed to have Lex Arcana tomorrow, but I don't think we're doing that. So I don't think Lex Arcana's on tomorrow, unfortunately. And Thursday's under question right now for the One Ring, but at the moment the One Ring is down for Thursday. And in the North America time zone, we will be doing Acton Cthulhu, so that will be going on Thursday. And then on Friday, I think we've probably got a Monsters of the Week. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I don't think any of the other Garblags are in the chat right now, so they can't help me out. Okay, but please, if you are watching on Twitch now, this is going to go on YouTube, so please go there and like it when it's up. If you're watching this back on YouTube, please come and join us on Twitch. The more people that follow us, the more we can do. That's great. Check out the Discord and check out our Patreon. There's loads of free stuff on there, so you don't have to sign up. But if you do sign up, you get more cool stuff. And if you get to certain tiers, then more stuff unlocks. And at the Explorer tier, you get to come play games with us once a month. Unfortunately, I've had to cancel my one this month, so Millie is kindly stepping in, taking over with some Coriolis, I think Alien or Coriolis, I'm not sure, one of the two. I think they're figuring it out right now. But with the patrons right now, we're doing a alternate universe version of Roads and Ruins, so our Pathfinder 2 show that you can find on our YouTube channel. The patrons are doing like an alternate version, so it's interesting to see what they've done as opposed to what the players in the show have done, and it's good for me to think about the world because it's all set in my world mountain setting, so it's good for me to explore that through both of those avenues, so that's cool. And they're really getting into it. It's a lot of fun. Cool. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. We've been Garbler Games, and I'm Pete, and stay safe and happy gaming.